Facebook there as well.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Justin Wilson. I'm here with Brian Thanos. We're going to discuss, the post-election results, which I totally question. And we're just going to go back and forth on how did we get here? How does it make sense in some way? And I personally believe that there was massive amount of fraud because it just seems super sketchy that they would, like at the moment where Trump was leading, they stopped counting. They said, oh, we have to go to bed. It's going to take us several days to count. Seemed like they had to make up some ballots or get ballots from wherever they needed them from. But there's other things that we can also look into that I think could explain why Biden apparently or is considered the projected winner at this point. But tell me what your thoughts, Brian. Why do you think things happened the way it did?
I wanted to interject what you said earlier. So, on election night, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning. I went to bed and I was looking at betting odds websites. The betting odds had Donald Trump at a 70% chance of winning the election. He had huge leads in Michigan and Wisconsin. He was up 15 points in Pennsylvania, and I believe there was like 65% reporting. And then I remember exactly what you were saying. I'm watching the news, and I can't remember exactly what time it was. It was pretty late. I think it was past midnight. And they said, well, we're done counting for today, and we're going to resume counting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I think, okay, well, I'm going to go to bed, and there shouldn't be any further updates. When I refresh my screen in the morning, the vote tallies are going to be the same, and I'll be up, and I'll get to see them retally votes as they continue to report. And then at around 4:30 in the morning, and I'm sure you have probably seen these graphs as well as your audience, anyone that follows this stuff, because these are pretty viral online, where you have the red line representing Trump votes, and you got the blue line representing Biden votes, and then in both Wisconsin and Michigan, you get the straight up line, just a vertical, 140,000 votes for Biden with 0 for Trump at 4 o'clock in the morning after they said that they were done counting. We're not going to count again until 10. So that was – I still have not heard an explanation for this. I remember I saw
there's just explanations. They said for Michigan that it was a typo error, clerical error. So they added an extra 0 or 1, which – where he was supposed to have like 50 ballots for Biden, it just added an extra 100,000 to that. So it just jumped up there. But it doesn't explain why did Wisconsin have something similar to that. They didn't explain that.
Around the same
time.
And then if that's the case, so like, did it correct? Because I saw the graph, it went like this. Did the graph then go, did they correct like, minus 100,000 and drop it back down? Because I haven't seen that so-called correction. If it was supposed to, instead of it being 138,000, it was supposed to be 13,800, the graph should have went back down and adjusted.
Yeah, so they say that they corrected it or they smoothed it out, but basically, you're supposed to just go with what they said because you're not looking at the ballots yourself. You're not looking at the machines. So most people are just going to either take it or just doubt it without even having enough evidence to prove that, look, there's something wrong going on here. Even when you corrected it, you still just gave an artificial correction. You can't even prove that from where we're sitting. But that and the funny thing is, the Michigan poll watchers were kept away from watching them count the ballots. In fact, they would try to get away with the technicality by letting them in the room, but 30 feet away from the ballots. How can you see 30 feet away unless you're like Superman?
They were using binoculars. They were using that. That's how ridiculous they got. They were using binoculars.
Yeah, it's crazy how people actually they believe that, okay, well, this definitely, so many voters came out and voted for Biden because they were excited about him. Now, even if that's true, you don't hear you don't hear that excitement for them the whole time. Most of them actually believe that he was going to lose. A lot of them.
In the polls, yeah. In the polls, I guess they call wisdom of the crowd when They said, well, who do you think is going to win the election? Who are your friends voting for? They had all these polls. They had Trump, polling way higher. A lot of people expected him to win and said that their friends were voting for him. So.
Oh wait, someone's asking you to not destroy the universe. Yeah, that's his actual name. So if you're wondering,
real. Like on my license, it's as real as it gets. But
yeah.
the same thing happened in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, the GOP was won a court order in which the judge had said that they should be able to observe all the counting of the ballots, and the Democrats are fighting this. They are fighting the order, saying that the GOP has the right to observe ballot counting. The Democrats don't want the GOP, they don't want Republicans watching them count ballots. I mean, you can only imagine why.
Yeah. It's to me, it's like if you're committing a crime, of course you're gonna fight against people watching you do the crime. But if you're not doing anything wrong, then of course you're gonna want to prove that you did nothing wrong. But there's other reasons that I would say Biden got a lot of votes. Besides, I would say fraud. We were talking before we got online, and it's clear that all like big tech, mainstream media, Hollywood was on one side, extremely heavy, and that was the Biden side, the establishment, which it's funny that they paint themselves as the resistance, but who are they resisting? They're resisting the underdog, the person who does not have all that, I guess mainstream power. It's crazy how people swear that they are receiving oppression from the power that be when they are the power that be.
Yeah, and I mean you have mainstream media along with celebrities, and you have big tech. Big tech, mainstream media creates a narrative, and then the celebrities amplify the narrative, and then you have big tech kind of fills in all the gaps and puts together this marketing campaign. They essentially did all the marketing. The celebrities and big tech did all the marketing for Joe Biden. He didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to campaign. He didn't have to leave his basement. It didn't matter what he said or what he did, because you were going to have big tech, and they're going to play damage control for him. They're going to make sure that you didn't see any stories that were going to hurt his chances of election. And then you're going to have celebrities endorse him and speak to their tens of millions of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook followers. So when you combine all of these forces, I think it's unbelievable that Trump did everything that he did, fighting against these forces with nonstop 24/7 bad mainstream media coverage. And then with big tech, you think about all these platforms between Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. Every single platform is controlling the flow of information and trying to either censor, slow the spread, or put some BS fact check or some sort of missing context fact check marker on any information that was not favorable to Joe Biden. And if you can control what people see, you can control what people think. And if you control what people think, you can influence their behavior. And the big tech was able to pander to low information voters, people that do nothing except maybe scroll past headlines on Facebook, all of which are going to be negative towards Trump. And then on top of that, they have 10,000 banner ads for the last 2 months reminding them to vote. Snapchat alone registered over 700,000 people to vote. And these are young kids for the most part. They're 18, 19, maybe 20 years old. And the only thing they know is what the Facebook headlines told them, is that Donald Trump is bad, and that, here's your reminder, you need to vote. And you need to vote like your life depends on it, because Michelle Obama told me so, because LeBron James told me so. So that's how they got all these people to vote that otherwise are not politically active. They don't even follow politics.
Yeah, and when you also consider the fact that Instagram, they immediately, like I think days before the election, they shut off the hashtag. They made sure that no one can override their algorithm system, because once the whole Biden laptop came out, that put them in a panic. They saw that many people were actually regretting their vote. They saw that because it weren't regretting their vote for Trump because it happened once the Biden laptop came out. So they cut off the hashtag because they know that people can quickly override their algorithm. They know that people will only associate with the people they know, and once people start putting hashtag this and that, they will start connecting with people they don't know, and they can see how people start changing their views based on the people they associate, the blacklisted words. If they start saying Trump 2020, boom, they know they got like a convert to the other side. So they said, okay, we have to put a stop to this window right here that is causing people to defect and become Trump supporters. And another thing is they know that if a person says one or two positive things about Trump, that means that person is likely to be a Trump voter. So they had to put a stop to that. And you can see, the brainwashing when it comes to people who believe fact checkers as fact. It's incredible. Like they have a level of critical thinking that goes up here, but it doesn't go above it. So if a fact checker comes up and says, well, missing context or it's totally false. Oh, well, they have critical thinking enough to question the first information that they received, but they don't have critical thinking to question the question about what they received. And that's what I've noticed about all these intellectuals who use these fact checkers. You ask them, do you fact check these fact checkers? Do you ever criticize them? They would start to like twitch. They're like, what do you mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, you have in most of these fact checks that I look at, we're all see on Facebook, they're not actually even fact checking the claim that's made. They might kind of fact check something similar or maybe one of the peripheral claims. But when you look at the main points that are being alleged, whether it be an article, a meme, a picture, etc., they're not even fact checking those. And the way Facebook works is if they have no grounds at all to say that it's fact check false, their last resort is missing context, because you can literally claim that anything is missing context. You can claim that any piece of data, and you could say, oh, well, this could benefit from having additional information. That's all that means. You say missing context, they just think, well, there's additional information that you should know, according to the left-wing activists that masquerade as objective moderators for Facebook. This is what we think you should know. If this is their level of determination, like I said, you can put missing context on anything. And of course, you don't see this on anything, all the misinformation that's spread about Trump. If you say that, Donald Trump said that white supremacists are great people or fine people, you could spread that meme all over Facebook, all over Twitter, and it will never be fact checked.
Yeah, exactly. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, so I posted this video on my Facebook straight from right on Facebook on Project Veritas, where they caught this guy giving $200 for a ballot. Now, immediately they put this fact check, false information. So, well, first, let me show you guys what was on there. Let me show you guys this. So, to me, this is just a dead giveaway.
Project Veritas has received an explosive piece of tape. The tape you're about to see shows a man buying a registration form for an absentee ballot from a voter, giving him, quote, pocket money, unquote, of $200 and expecting to collect his ballot when the voter receives it.
Wow, $800.
She's the one who came up with all this.
So she did it. She
Yeah.
started this whole thing with
Yeah.
the pay to vote.
Yeah.
So the people that work for Ilhan are actually counting the ballots, counting the vote.
And they become a manager in the prison too.
They walk with you to the booth, and then they vote, oh, vote this guy, vote this guy, vote this guy. Vote, even if you speak English.
So, I think you
And
guys
then-
get it.
It's all about money and power. And they want to
So anyway, to me, that just seems like damnable evidence right there. But Facebook, they put a fact checker on that. Now we're gonna read what. Let me go back so that it can restart it. Yeah, Facebook put a fact checker on there just to look at the fraud.
Yeah.
All right, so look at this. So false information. Same information was checked in another post by independent fact checkers. Independent. Who believes that?
That's left-wing activist.
Yeah. So see why. Okay. So let's see why this is fact check. Okay. Fact check. No proof. Like, how do you know? The money is proof, okay, or evidence, not
Yeah,
exactly
video.
proof.
There was just a video of it.
Yeah, video. So they're like, look, don't believe your eyes or your ears. Believe what we say. We are the gospel. We tell you what reality is.
Another thing is when you read the whole thing, sometimes what they do is they will just fact check. I guess one of it's not even the main argument that the video is making. They might say, okay, well, the scheme is. They can say, okay, well, we don't know if the scheme was connected to Representative Ilhan Omar, but at the same time, they're not refuting that this video is evidence of fraud. Because the main point is, look, I'm showing you a video that is evidence of voter fraud. And they dispute, they go, well, we can't dispute that it's evidence of fraud, but we don't know if it was really connected to this person.
Yeah. So a lot of people who think that this is disproving fraud, they just post this when really it's really a red herring. It's just bringing up something else that's not really the point of the discussion. So it says, fact check, no proof of alleged voter fraud, scheme, or connection to Representative Ilhan Omar, but testimony of someone who is not coerced, who is just speaking it freely, that is evidence. I mean, what people say is evidence. That's why you take witnesses to court. If you don't have a video or a recording of somebody speaking of something or confessing, sometimes witnesses adds up to, proof. So let's check this out. All right. So okay. So they say no proof, even though we had video proof. Okay. So then they said a right-wing organization led by James O'Keefe published in a video of September 27th that purports to contain proof that Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar is linked to cash for ballots voter fraud. The 17-minute video relies on unnamed sources. No, they actually had names. Covert footage and uncorroborated translation from Somali to English to allege that canvassers for Omar and for a city council candidate, Jamal Osman, paid for votes in a recent election. Now, to me, this sounds dumb. Uncorroborated translations from Somali to English. Well, I've noticed there's another video of that same guy, and one of the guys on the video. He never disputed what he said. He never disputed that or how it was translated. Then he goes on. Omar defeat her primary challenger. See, that's to be questioned too with all this. Mm-hmm. Anthony Melton, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Mukes in August 11th, or Mayu, with more than 60% of the vote. Okay. So they just keep on repeating, there is no actual proof of fraud. This just sounds like a guilty person.
But they can almost say that about any, like you could have a video of something and they could just say, well, we just don't think that's proof. Like that's essentially what they can say.
Yeah. Yeah. I presented this video to someone else and what they said is, well, that's not proof. You got to show me like bank statements and all kinds of stuff and phone calls. I'm like, look.
So they want more proof.
Yeah, they want more proof.
Okay.
So you just got a phone call and you want bank statements. But if fraud is going on, then they're not going to use their bank statement to do something illegal because then it could be traced to them. They're going to use cash. Duh. But so they keep moving the goalposts to somewhere where they know it cannot be proven or is just going to be irrational for it to be disproven wrong. So let me see what else they said that they just keep repeating that there's no proof. Let me see. Okay. Project Veritas describes Omar Jamal, the chairman of the Somali Watchdog Group, as its central source. Okay, that's not good enough. Who would? There's little proof a Somali Watchdog Group, of which Jamal is labeled the chairman, exists. Its website lists Jamal as the sole member, and a domain was not registered until August 7th. But he exists. That's what mattered.
They just use Snopes as a source to validate their fact check. They use another left-wing activist fact-checking website to fact check to help reinforce their fact check. Do you see this? According to
Yeah.
That's
okay, and they incriminate themselves even more. They say Jamal was convicted of lying to immigration officials in 2007 per NPR. So get this. Guess who else lied? They don't bring up the fact that she married her brother to immigration. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible, like hypocritical. And then it said Sohan Journal reported that Jamal had backtracked on some of his claims in the interview with Somali American TV. Specifically, Jamal said he had never met anyone who received cash for a ballot. But we watched them do it on video, so it's kind of irrelevant whether he watched them. We watched them. So, yeah, it goes on and on. You see, they say no link, but the people that are doing the pay for cash, they're actually working for her and actually saying that they're working for her.
What I find really disheartening is we spent 3 years talking about how somehow there was Russians helping Donald Trump get elected, where I guess they were alleging that people created fake Facebook accounts and were spreading fake stories in order to get Donald Trump elected. You have bona fide examples of Facebook censoring articles that are true. Like when the New York Post story, after the New York Post story was released, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, well, we don't really know about this, so we're going to try to help slow the spread of it. And then he was questioned. I don't know if you saw this. He was subpoenaed. Mark Zuckerberg and also Jack Dorsey were both subpoenaed, and they had to answer questions in front of Congress, and they were asked point blank, do you have any evidence at all that this New York Post story was Russian disinformation? They said no. So why the heck did they censor it? Why was the New York Post locked out of their account for 2 weeks? Why was the White House press secretary locked out of her account? Why was the Trump campaign Twitter locked out of their account as well? All because they tweeted the story from the New York Post in which they could not fact check. And that's what killed them so much. They were panicking. They couldn't fact check it. So they just decided to censor it. In the meantime, they go, we're going to censor for now. And then we're going to try to fact check false it if we can. It might take some time. Oh, we can't. So, 2 weeks later, now, the election's tomorrow. Now you're allowed to post the story again.
Yeah. It was silly how Jack Dorsey, he was asked the question of, okay, if you have no evidence, then why'd you ban New York Post? And he said, well, they can post again after they delete their original post. So we've taken that. What? So you are censoring them, and you're trying to convince us that you're not censoring them by telling us that they can post again until they delete the. Why do? It was crazy how he was really trying to like pretty much gaslight all these people. Now people want the gas. Actually, they really like it because it affirms their reality. But it's incredible how dumb they think we are. Now, I gotta admit, there are a lot of dumb people, so it makes sense that they would say these things to, like you said, low information voters. But some people, like I see people on the left, excuse me, not on the left, the comment section, they are bringing up this idea of like watermarks being put on the ballots. I'm hearing that a lot, and I believe it makes a lot of sense. Have you heard of that?
I saw it. I looked into it, and I saw there were some conflicting claims. They said something like, because they were trying to say that I guess the DOJ had put watermarks on the ballots, and then when I was reading further into it, they said something like it was just local election officials that print out the ballots. So I don't know if that was in fact true or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, if these are official ballots for the feds, doesn't matter which states they're in, then that means that I guess the feds would have some input on the printing and also, I guess, the template that's being used for each state. So, I mean, I totally believe it makes sense, especially considering that Trump was planning or at least known about this, because he was tweeting about how this is going to be the worst like fraudulent election in history, because he kept warning about ballots, like mail-in ballots, universal mail-in ballots, which they keep trying to confuse it with absentee ballots. And they say, oh, this has never happened in history. We have never had absentee fraud in history. Or they do point to like an extremely small percentage of fraud going on. But besides that, they leave out the fact that universal, mail-in ballots are just open to extreme fraud. And Trump has known about this. He's been talking about it in his rallies. Now, someone is telling us look at Hammer and Scorecard, and actually I have this video.
Hammer and what did they say?
Hammer and Scorecard. That is the program or the computer tech that they use to count all the ballots, and there's some kind of app where it could actually at a whim change the votes from one candidate to another candidate. So it literally changed 6,000 or so votes, or at least that what they found, 6,000 votes from Trump to Biden. And this is the same machine used for all 30 different states or 30 different counties, all being in swing states, which is to me a clear intention of targeting places that they know that they need it to win. And most of all these glitches they call, all these glitches favor Biden.
And coincidentally, they always seem to do that. And on what you were saying in Michigan, where it was Michigan County, and they ended up originally they said, oh, this is going for Biden, it's blue, and then it was switched over for Trump, and there was a 6,000 vote swing. I was looking into the story, and first they said, okay, well, it was a computer glitch that instead of it was a computer glitch that said that Biden vote, or I guess Trump votes were Biden votes, which is kind of crazy that their system can't determine who the votes were for. And then that story went on to make another claim saying, well, we actually think that the computer system did everything correctly. They printed out the vote tallies on a card, like they had Trump, they had Biden, and they had the number of votes. And then they said that somehow after it was printed out, the numbers got scrambled, which seems crazy. I don't know how ink on paper just gets scrambled. The Trump and Biden votes just go like this. They just get mixed up. It seems kind of unbelievable. Like in any scenario, if the scenario is that the software glitched and is giving Biden votes to Trump and vice versa, or Trump votes to Biden, or if somehow printed ink on paper got scrambled. I mean, any scenario where you lay this out, it just seems like there's something nefarious that's going on.
Yeah, yeah, and also Nancy Pelosi owns a share of that program. So it just it explains why, like a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, she said at a press at a press conference, she said, "Yeah, Biden's going to win no matter what the number is." Like, why did you say what? That doesn't make sense. I think that was a Freudian slip, and she does that every now and then, where she has a little Biden moment where she says things that she shouldn't have said, but she gets away with it. No one, at least on her side, ever just call her out for it. But it doesn't make sense to say that Biden's going to win no matter what the number is, unless you rig the system. They knew about of course, their glitch. It's people are rightly calling it a feature, where you can just press a button and then boom, it will shake the system enough to like collective votes to actually change the collective votes to make sure it exceeds Trump's. Because I don't know, you just can't convince me that the guy who was in the basement for all these months, and then also he closed the lid like five days into the election.
He wasn't campaigning.
Yeah, he closed his campaign. You can't convince me that this guy somehow he influenced so many people to vote for him. Nah. And I don't think the hate for Trump actually caused that much votes.
Well, the whole narrative that somehow just Trump lost so much support, people didn't like Trump, so that way they're defecting to Biden. I don't think that holds any weight at all, because Trump got 8 million more votes in this election than he got in last election. He had historic numbers with minorities. He had more minority votes than any Republican president since 1960. So even regardless of outcome, this whole narrative that Trump is a racist, that was completely destroyed. He did better with blacks, with Hispanics, with gays, with Muslims. And the only demographic he did worse with was with white men. So if the Democrats want to parade around with their arms in the air screaming that they are the party of inclusion and diversity, it's complete nonsense, because if there's any demographic that is responsible for getting Joe Biden elected, it's not minorities.
Yeah, it definitely is. So yeah. You can't, I don't think you can convince people that he lost a ton of support. He gained more.
He gained support. He gained 8 million voters. He gained support.
I imagine it's probably 10 or 12 actually more. But they've been actually destroying ballots. They have there's stories of like them setting ballot boxes on fire. Let me see. Let me actually show you guys. Yeah, they burned some ballot boxes on fire. Let me get this off. They have been, of course, misdirecting ballots, changing ballots in front of people. Now, there's video that is circulating of someone who is filling out a ballot. But the thing is, a lot of those videos are people who are refilling ballots because they may have been
they said damaged ballots, yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're making sure that the ballot is going to match the same one that was damaged. It's
exactly.
That's another thing you can see. Like maybe the person voted for Trump and then they're refilling out the damaged ballot. They go, oh, well, it's bubbling Biden. So, I mean, there's a lot of impropriety that could happen.
Exactly. So, I mean, those things could happen. I mean, that was always available for both sides and stuff. But the thing is that, okay, so here's one that I think is clear evidence to me that they're destroying ballots here and there. Let me share my screen. Let me see. Let me get on my... Yeah, have you seen this one where this guy he's flipping off a ballot? He's getting so frustrated with the count.
No, I haven't seen this. Now play it.
What's going on here? Steve has a fit about something.
Do you see it?
It looked like he threw something, or what did he do? I couldn't tell. He did like some spastic motion with his arm.
Yeah, he's really frustrated. He's like,
what's going on here? Steve has a fit about something.
I saw he was stacking like this he was grabbing, I guess, bouncing with both hands.
Let's talk about it.
See, he just puts
Yeah.
crumbles it up.
So he goes through and he goes, well, I don't like this one. This one's not going to go through the machine. Let's throw this one to this pile.
Yeah. So some can say, okay, he's just frustrated that, oh, well, maybe someone made an error on the ballot, but you don't throw it away. You don't throw away ballots that have errors or anything like that. And you don't get frustrated or just put the middle finger out on a ballot unless it's representing someone you don't like. Who do you think? I mean, who do you imagine he thinks is disgusting? It's at this point in this season, it's Donald Trump. Most people say F Donald Trump. You don't hear a lot of people saying F Biden. not even on the Trump side. I mean, really, people are saying, have you heard this phrase? Not my pedophile.
No, I haven't heard of that. I know Jericho Green. He has, I don't know if you ever watched Jericho Green, but he has his own term for Biden. He calls him Bidenus pervertus.
Biden pervertus?
Bidenus pervertus.
Yeah.
Main term, yeah. But I haven't heard about my pedophile. That's funny.
Oh yeah, here's the video of like ballot boxes set on fire.
Oh wow.
So you probably never recovered those ballots.
I would imagine not.
So this is probably happening in so many ways, different styles. Like what we're catching on video is a sample of what's not caught. That's what people don't get, is that this is happening 10 times more, 20, 30, 40,000 times more off video than on video. And like people think, oh, well, there's no widespread evidence of this. There's no evidence. Well, see, that's the thing. If you find someone, let's say stealing candy, well, the fact that you found them suggests that it happens a lot because you don't just stumble across it if it doesn't happen all the time.
It's usually not their first time either. It's like when someone gets caught for a crime, that's usually not their first time committing that crime. And another thing to look at, when you kind of look at everything in retrospect, this was back earlier this year. There was, when they first started doing all these universal mass mail-out ballots because COVID was such an existential threat that you can't go vote in person, but of course you can riot, right? In Paterson, New Jersey, this was a primary election where Democrats were running against Democrats. And there was so much fraud that was uncovered that they had to invalidate 20% of the ballots. And they just had to redo the entire election. That's how much of a mess it was. And that was Democrats trying to beat other Democrats. So this idea that Democrats would not be willing to cheat, Democrats are willing to cheat just to beat other Democrats. What do you think they're willing to do to beat Donald Trump?
Yeah. And, speaking about that, a lot of Democrats were frustrated with Hillary and even also with Biden and Buttigieg at the primaries because they felt that they cheated Bernie out of his obvious popular vote. And, it's funny how they had to shut up about it because they felt that if they called out Biden too much, called out their camp, then they would be helping Trump. So they had to shut up about the corruption. So if they can admit that there was corruption even in their own camp, especially with the last primary that gave Biden the win for them. And, if they had to be quiet for that. Now, just imagine now where they have to be quiet about this, about this fraud, I would say, because like they don't want to give Trump the victory. They think, oh, no, we have to be quiet. We have to, have a, code of silence because at least he won. But it's like, no, you guys don't get it. Like if you cheat, you did not win. That's the thing. You cheat because you lost. That's why. But it's interesting if they would cheat on themselves, then don't you think they're going to cheat the American people? Like they don't see the connection. They just
Right,
don't see the connection.
these are elections. When Democrats are running against Democrats, these are way less contentious and less consequential elections than this one. And they're willing to cheat just to beat people in their own party, no matter what. A Democrat's going to win. Democrats are running against Democrats. You're going to have a Democrat win. So you can just imagine the most hated president by the Democrats in history, right? There's no one that the Democrats hate more than Donald Trump. You would think that there's nothing that they would there's nothing that they would not be willing to do to try to unseat him. I mean, you look at everything that happened over the last few months. They were locking people in their homes, closing businesses as they allowed people to riot in the streets, to protest en masse. I mean, there was nothing. There was nothing that they were not willing to do to try to get them elected. If they felt like it helped them politically, if they felt that having people burn down buildings was politically beneficial to them, then they were completely okay with it. And they never spoke up. They never said a word until some of the rioting started showing up in the polls. So these people, that's all they are. I mean, they don't actually have any genuine concern for the people that they are elected to be in charge of to serve. That's it. They don't care about the health and safety of anyone. They certainly don't care about the well-being of law-abiding citizens. The only thing that they care about is votes, and they have all the pollsters at the DNC tell them what they should do, what they should say, and what they should care about, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Here's another example. Here's another example of voter fraud right here. I have on my editing line. It's just, I was trying to create this compilation of fraud. This was done in Philadelphia.
They told you to leave. It was essentially the business is closed right now. Residences don't have business hours. These are commercial establishments. Pennsylvania has problems with their voter rolls, and this is important because Pennsylvania is going to be sending out a lot of mail ballots, and the voter rolls in Pennsylvania have a variety of problems. The one we're focused on is the people who are registered improperly where they're not supposed to be registered. When you register to vote, they want your residence address, and you've got all these commercial addresses with registrations.
So has Pennsylvania been a problem before?
Pennsylvania's a mess on the voter rolls. Pennsylvania was decided by 44,000 votes in 2016. We have a list of 21,000 dead. It's got people registered to vote at all sorts of wild places.
So a guy said, you're on the second floor, and I go, oh, does he live here? And he goes, oh, no, they're on the biggest gas station.
Oh, this is the Alcoa headquarters. It's an aluminum corporation of America. There's nobody going to be living there. There's nobody by that name there. You got a locked commercial place, but people there say there's no by that name.
Does she live here?
She doesn't live here.
She doesn't live here?
He's already voted.
He's already voted? Okay, but does he live upstairs? He doesn't live upstairs?
It's not a residence.
It's not a residence.
In some cases, they're vacant lots. Commercial areas are getting representation that they don't deserve. It's a whole industry with hundreds of millions of dollars devoted to making sure it's not done. They don't want any of these problems documented. We've turned the election of 2020 over from the democratically elected representatives to the elite to change the rules in the middle of the game about how we're going to elect this nation's leaders.
James O'Keefe here in downtown Minneapolis.
So, yeah. So there you have it. You have Philadelphia. They had, 21,000 registered dead people voting for some of their elections. And if some people say, well, there's no such thing as like widespread, voter fraud, then I don't get how they just ignore all those cases there. Maybe because social media blocks them from knowing all that stuff. It just filters all that information out conveniently. So a lot of these people are sheltered from knowing this, and that's why it makes sense to like expose this as much as possible because, yeah, we're being set up with Yeah, we're being set up for slaughter at this moment, I would say,
This is
because
what I think is pretty scary. It's like you see everything that's happening with big tech and how they basically are trying to elect a candidate, and they have so much power where they essentially, like I said, they control the flow of information. Where if you don't have a competing tech platform, I just don't see anyone having a chance to be able to compete with something so powerful in which you can control what almost everyone sees. So one thing that I'd like to see, and regardless of outcome, and I hope that if not Trump, I hope someone does it, but I think Trump has enough power, he has enough influence, he has enough money where he could start his own social media platform. And that's what I'd like to see because otherwise, I think it's just going to be extremely difficult to get anyone elected that is not someone that Google, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Snapchat supports. So you have someone like Trump who has 88 million Twitter followers. He has over 30 million people that follow him on Facebook, and he has enough following where he could immediately bring all those people to his social media platform and then let it grow from there. But there needs to be some sort of alternative tech platform. Otherwise, we're going to see, if somehow Joe Biden gets into office, you will see censorship like communist China, that kind of censorship. I think it's going to be insane because if you see what they're doing, this is with Republicans in office, with Donald Trump in charge of the White House, with Republicans in charge of the Senate. Can you imagine what these people would do with Joe Biden in charge? I think that New York Post story, instead of censoring it, instead of locking him out of their account for 2 weeks, they'll just go on delete. That's it. They're going to have a Biden representative that's going to be acting as the moderator for Facebook, for YouTube. They will go down the line. They'll scroll through YouTube. They'll delete my account. They'll delete your account. They'll just completely delete New York Post. There'll be no more Candace Owens. There'll be no more Brandon Tatum. There'll be no more Ben Shapiro. There's not going to be any conservative media. I think they will try to scrub it essentially from all the tech platforms.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a scary thought because see, this deals with even me, like in my platform. I will be gone like after this election.
They will
If
Biden, you were one click away. You were one click away from some Biden moderator activists sitting behind a computer, scrolling through YouTube and saying, well, I don't like that, delete. And that's it. You're done. Your entire video library, your entire channel is done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all they have to do is just use a couple of phrases like dangerous. What you're saying could actually get people killed. I'm like, what could I say that could?
They just say it's sensitive material. That's it. And they can be very, very vague. They're not specific about anything. If you go, oh, it's sensitive, okay, which video and which video was it and what did I say that was sensitive? Please tell me because I want to change. I want to make sure that I am saying stuff that is within your confines, within your rules. So please be specific in exactly what I said that you didn't like. And they won't say any of those things because there is no dialogue. No. They are the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And if they decide that they don't like your content, that is enough. And if you like, they're already doing this. All this for them. You have the New York Post, which is the fourth largest newspaper in circulation. They've been around for 200 years. And if they can lock the New York Post out of their account, if they can lock the White House press secretary out of her account, then you would think the next logical progression, if these people know that now they're going to face no consequences, because for a while there, they weren't sure. Maybe, if Trump stays in office, they know that they're going to have to answer for all the censorship that they've been doing. But they know if they don't have to answer for that censorship, now they know that the federal government is behind them, that they're working together to censor information that would hurt the people in power. You're going to see censorship that's going to make communist China look like a joke.
Yeah, exactly. And people are pretending they don't see it going that way. Because they feel safe. Like with the people on the left, they feel safe under this kind of censorship because they think, oh, well, no, they're not going to censor us. They're only going to censor those racist white people that annoy us, or the conservatives, or even those black conservatives. They want to censor all the people that really disturbs their reality. And they don't realize it's going to bite them in the butt because eventually they're going to be in the cut, like the chopping block eventually. They're going to feel like, wait, hold on, how come I can't say this? How can I can't share this? And why am I going to jail for saying this or that? I can't question the government. Questioning the government is dangerous. That can cause terrorism. That can cause domestic terrorism. So you're saying me questioning Joe Biden, it could cause domestic terrorism, and it can excite violence, and it's going to get it's going to go from 0 to 100 real quick, because once this power has total power, they won't be able to stop them and have a movement, because even if they did have some kind of movement, it's going to be censored out. It's not going to be televised, and they're just going to be labeled as right-wing extremists. No matter how much of a leftist they may be, they're going to be labeled as right-wing extremists. That's what caused a lot of people who were on the left to become right-wing, because they were just labeled as right-wing for even questioning someone on their side. So yeah, it's going to get real quick. But this is Parler. I think many of you guys have heard of it. This is the alternative platform that doesn't censor, at least as of now. Yeah. And a lot of conservatives are jumping ship and going here to at least express their views. They don't like the idea of leaving Facebook. They're going to stay on there, I would say. They're going to stay on Facebook and Twitter until the wheels falls off. But still, this is a more safer place to share ideas and not get totally banned. And I know it's safe because Tommy, if Tommy, what do you call it?
Tommy Lahren or who?
No. That's my. I don't know how. I just had a brain fart right now.
What?
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, Tommy Robinson. I don't know why I haven't spoken about him in a long time. Tommy Robinson is speaking freely here. Then I know it's good, because they banned this guy. Like they gave him the Alex Jones treatment. He can't go anywhere.
He was in social media timeout.
Timeout? No, he's banned. Period. Oh, wow. Can't be YouTube, Google.
Yeah.
No.
Social media execution then.
Yeah. So, yeah, but
there has to be other prominent forms of communication. I mean, Parler's good. I just hope that one of these platforms will grow to the scale where they have influence that is at least comparable to the influence that these other social media platforms have.
Yeah. I guess what would have to happen is, a huge chunk of conservatives have to be in here and share information to the point where they have to wonder what we're doing, what we're talking about. And the people on the left, a lot of people have to jump in here and see the information that we're sharing, the movement that's going on, and then they would have to take part of it. But yeah, that's the issue, is that we don't want to just fall into an echo chamber with just talking to ourselves. We want to influence the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we win.
I agree with that. So, but I think what has to end up happening is eventually what we want to do is you want to be able to have, like you said, there needs to be people with different viewpoints that are seeing what you're saying, so that way you can have influence on people that don't already agree with you. And I think the way that happens is it would have to grow to the point where there is some sort of curiosity from the other side, like you said, where they would come in. And that's why I think that Trump would be the perfect person to try to promote one of these alternative platforms. He could tweet to his 88 million Twitter followers, hey, here's my Parler account, and try to bring all of those people over. Something like that would be really, really powerful.
Yeah. I don't know why he hasn't done it, but I guess him saying that, it just gives the impression of him running. So he doesn't want to come across as weak or someone who doesn't fight, stand his ground. So if if he actually sets his flag somewhere, he's going to stay there and fight it, even if it's he's going to fight for it, even if it's in Twitter. So yeah, he definitely needs to like break up big tech, somehow put some ground rules and some other kind of laws that they have to stay consistently by, because they're breaking their laws, their own rules, where they're trying to be a publisher, but then at the same time, they don't want to be sued for the content that's on there, which is doublespeak. That's just
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. It's like, okay, well, either you're a social media platform and you're not responsible at all for what your users post, or you're a publisher and in fact you are responsible, but they're trying to say, okay, well, don't sue me. I'm not a publisher. I'm not responsible for what my users post. But in the meantime, we're going to fact check, we're going to censor, and we're going to make sure that people on our platform cannot see stuff that we don't like.
yeah. Yeah, and that's the issue. It's their it's just their double standard, and they're getting away with their double standard because they are the big ones. They're the monopoly. Like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to fight Google when they have their tentacles with like all these financial companies, like Visa, Discover Card, all those companies that can actually block us from or ban us from actually working in their banks because of some hate speech. That is the scary part, is that Google has Facebook, Google, all those groups have their hands on our finances somehow. So they can at will just say, look, PayPal, please do not work with this guy because you guys do not promote hate. So why would you have this guy make money off of hate? He's a terrorist. So please cut off his financial flow here. People left, people left Patreon because that's what they were doing with a lot of these YouTube influencers, conservative ones. What was it, like Paul Joseph Lawson and what's his name? Was it Sargon Akkad?
Well, what did Patreon do? Explain.
Sorry?
What you said? Patreon did something to them, or?
Yeah, they pretty much like banned them from actually Patreoning there. Like they can't use it. So they went to Subscribestar.
So
because
I've never used Patreon, but is that like a payment processor or no?
Yeah, it's a payment subscription plan for like social media influencers or just people who have art that people want to support every month. So you can just give $1, $2 every month, and you get to support your favorite influencer. And if you have that in the thousands, then that person can actually live off of the crowdfunding.
Okay.
So that's how you can be independent and continue to do, continue to be a content creator that is supported by the people that watch your content. Mm-hmm. So I have a Subscribestar myself. So yeah, people can subscribe to that with any tier of amount that they want to give, like $1, $100, $1 million, whatever.
So what exactly happened on Patreon? I guess some left-wing activists came after them, and then cancel culture ensued and basically kept them from being able to earn money on Patreon?
Pretty much, yeah. So, and Patreon just pretty much had a note saying, look, we don't support hate, and we cannot support your content, and yada, yada. Yeah. Something to do with, like, Islamophobia, all kinds of stuff, hate. So all the allegations they had for Alex Jones, they had for those kinds of guys. So that's the deal. And so a lot of people aren't really, they're a bit suspicious of Patreon. So they're more trusting of Subscribestar.
Because Subscribestar is, I mean, they haven't had those same issues where they will basically concede to a left-wing activist that says we don't like that person.
Yeah. Not yet. So,
one thing I just find completely crazy is I've seen people, especially on my social media, I have a lot of people on the left, so I get a pretty good idea of what their thoughts are. And they have this crazy delusional idea that Biden is the candidate that is fighting for the middle class, but somehow at the same time, he is the candidate that the biggest, most powerful companies have all gotten behind. Where you're not even billion-dollar companies, you're talking about trillion-dollar companies. He is the candidate of Facebook and Twitter and Google and YouTube and Snapchat, Instagram. And somehow they think this guy is fighting for the middle class. And the way I see it is if Biden is in office, it's not really Joe Biden, because Joe Biden's not going to do anything. The guy is an 80-year-old daughter. He's an 80-year-old doddering old man who's not going to do anything. It's going to be President Dorsey of Twitter. It's going to be President Zuckerberg of Facebook. And they're going to have the keys to the castle. They're going to be able to do whatever they want. They're going to be able to act with absolute impunity to control the internet, to control their networks exactly as they see fit, without any pushback, without any consequences, without anyone being able to have a dissenting viewpoint.
Yeah, exactly. I like this thing that someone said here. Let me see. Paul Kersey, he said, the left is cheering for the most establishment candidate in the history of America. That is so true. He's like, what the F? Like, how establishment can you get? Like, do we really think that Joe Biden has original ideas, that he's doing this for himself, or not for himself, but at least for
people, for the American people?
Yeah, for the American people, besides the establishment, the people that have been running the thing for years. It's crazy how, like I've said before, they swear there's institutional racism and that this has been going on for decades, but yet the people that has been on top of this institution, this establishment, they want to set back in power this guy who's been in politics for almost 50 years. Yes, he's going to get it right this time. It makes no sense.
Finally ready to fix it after he's sat there and just idly watched this for nearly 50 years. Now he's ready to really put in the work and fix the issues. That's what these people think, which is pretty insane. Like you said, they think this is the candidate that's for the people, that's for the middle class. He's someone that's been in government for 50 years. He's enriched his family and himself off being in government, and he has the support of the richest, most powerful people on the planet. In addition to big tech, there was 131 billionaires that donated to his campaign. And somehow people were conned into thinking that this guy is fighting for the middle class. It's when you have this many powerful people that help you get elected, like when you have Mark Zuckerberg and you have Jack Dorsey that put in all the marketing, did all the heavy lifting to get you elected, they're going to want something in return. That's not for free. If Joe Biden is in office, Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg are going to want something.
Exactly. That's true. Or vice versa. I'm not sure which one is pulling the strings here. The powers that be that's controlling Facebook, or Facebook controlling the world, or those social media giants.
They all work together. It's all one and the same. So interesting. I was talking to my dad used to live in China, and I was telling him, I said, if Biden gets in office, you're going to see communist China level censorship. And he goes, well, in China there is no Facebook. It just state-owned social media platforms. And I said, well, that's essentially what will happen here, except they're just not going to change the name. They're still going to call it Facebook, except they're going to have a Biden representative acting as the moderator, scrolling through Facebook feeds, deciding what you can and can't see. It's the exact same thing, but you just keep the same name.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're going to have some kind of I would say like resistant movements. It's going to seem to give the appearance of freedom, but it's not. It's only their resistant movement is only against their enemies. So you don't have freedom to go against the establishment. You only have freedom to go against who they perceive to be, I guess, against the establishment, which could be anybody. So they can go out, they can say, oh, well, look, these people are sharing their feelings. They're talking about racism and Facebook. Sure, they can take all those I guess criticism about race as long as it fits their meta narrative, which is critical race theory. That's how they control everybody, because they need everyone to stay within this Marxist paradigm to control them. But as long as they talk about racism and the battle between the poor and the rich and so on, they can still control them. But if they start talking about information freedom, being free to express yourself, having freedom to have your guns, freedom to actually not allow the government to take control of you. Whoa, hold on, you're dangerous now, like, because you're breaking out of their Marxist views, and that's what they don't want. So, yeah, it's going to get, like you said, they're going to give the appearance of being like free, like having a social media platform where everyone is socializing freely, but it's not going to be true. Facebook.
Well, I mean, identity politics is one of their greatest weapons. What you were saying, where they want to implement this critical race theory and tell everyone that America is systemically racist, and the only way it will not be racist or be less racist is if we have a Democrat in office. Donald Trump chipped away at it a little bit, interestingly enough. I mean, like we both discussed earlier, he was able to bring a lot of minorities over to the Republican Party. But I think what needs to happen in order to completely end all this identity politics BS, to completely take away, you want to disarm the Democrats of their number one weapon, is if you had a black conservative, you had a Candace Owens, for example, run for office, they would be stripped of their greatest weapon. Now you have someone, they can't say she's sexist. They can't say she's racist. And I think it would be hard too, where especially celebrities, for all the celebrities, if they were to come out and smear her, I feel like it would be a bad look on their part. The Republicans, I feel like could benefit from someone like that. But what do you think?
I'm learning that it's almost making no difference. Like they're still treating Candace Owens as though she's white. So they feel like they could just ban her. They're censoring her. Her being black, there's some edge to that, but yeah, they manipulate enough black people to say, look, if she doesn't vote for Joe Biden, if she doesn't agree with our narrative, they're not black. So you can treat them as though they're not black. So that's what I'm seeing right now. They actually just treat us more aggressively because we're black. We have stronger influence.
That you just didn't stay on the railroad tracks and just go in their predetermined path.
Yeah. It could be worse from a different perspective, because the fact that I have influence as a black person, or they see that as like some credentials. Like I could just be a Trojan horse. I could go walk into a Black Lives Matter meeting with less suspicion and then start questioning the whole narrative. So they see me as more dangerous. They'll go crazy with censorship if I, would start to speak. Now, for example, I know that they're like shadow banning my channel. And sometimes my channel like overrides their shadow banning, but I think that they kind of like let go a little of me a little bit, because they don't think I'm that influential. If I was like Brandon Tatum or something like that, or some other let's say like the Hodge twins, then they're like, oh shoot, we got to ban this real quick. We can't just let this get off the ground. They know who has like high influence and low influence. Now I think I would say I have like a C- influence. But the people, the black influencers, they probably have like, maybe some have like a B+ influence, A+ influence. And those guys, they would treat them like Alex Jones. Like, for example, they got this guy, what's his name? Doctor of Common Sense. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He was like one of the first to get banned from YouTube, just got rid of him. Have you heard of this guy?
What's his name?
His name is Dr. Common Sense, or Dr. Common Sense.
No, he had a YouTube channel or what?
Yeah, he had a good following, had at least a couple of 100,000 following, and he would just sit in front of the camera. That wasn't very complicated, just like a lot of YouTubers, and just speak about the left and speak about Hillary Clinton. And I mean, they banned this guy. They did him before they did Alex Jones. I'm like, oh, I see what just happened there. They had to get rid of him because he was black. He was like in a sense, like a black Alex Jones, except he was far less. It's not like he just brought facts, like he showed evidence and all that, but he just spoke his mind because it was, common sense. But they had to get rid of him. So him being black did not slow them down from getting rid of his voice.
I just think, like, if you were to look at the optics of this, imagine if you were to have a black conservative run against Joe Biden. I just don't see how they could effectively use their identity politics arguments and say, this guy is a racist, as you have a black conservative standing next to Joe Biden. I just think the optics of this, even for liberals who are extremely delusional, even they would have to at least question that ridiculous narrative. It would just be so absurd.
True. So if Trump was just like black, let's say history changed at a whim, and he was black and he was up against Hillary Clinton and all, yeah, he probably would have a better chance. If he was exactly who he was, except black, yeah, I don't know. I think history would be different.
It would be one of their biggest weapons would be gone. And then Republicans can say, we're the party of diversity and inclusion. They would get to use, they could literally they could troll the Democrats with their own lingo, essentially.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because, okay, Ben Carson was not a Donald Trump, but how did they treat him? They just mocked him, and they used other things they didn't use his race. They just, at least among black people, they would say, okay, he was nothing like us. He's a coon. He's a sellout. And that he's essentially white because he's doing it for white people. That's how they would dismiss him. But yeah.
What they try to do, they try to downplay this a lot. So if you have Ben Carson or you have a Tim Scott, and they go, oh, okay, well, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4 people. It's not that many. They don't really have the diversity that we have over here in the Democratic Party. But I think their argument would be so much weaker is if you had a black person at the top of the ticket. It would just be so much more powerful. It'd be like, okay, well, look, we had the primary election, and this is our candidate right here. So what do you guys have to say now? You have an 80-year-old white dude who has been in politics for 50 years, and we have a black person who won the primary, who's at the top of the ticket, and somehow you're claiming that you're the party of diversity and inclusion when there is a chance that we could have another historical moment. This would be the first black Republican president, and I feel like they could play that card up. This will be the first black Republican president, and like I said, I think that their biggest weapon, not to say they won't use it at all, but it'll just be weaker. I think it'll be significantly weaker.
Yeah, it would be. But, yeah, they find ways to just make up for that issue.
Well, they'll say they're not black. Of course, they'll go to Joe Biden. Well, that guy's not really black. He doesn't think like a black person.
Yeah. I'm not really black, guys. You can tell.
He doesn't think like he should, so basically he's not black.
Yeah, we all know that black people are like a monolith. They
all think exactly the same.
Exactly the same. They're very predictable. Very, very predictable. To a degree, I can get away with saying. I think everyone in general is predictable. Because human nature, you have a nature. You have a certain way you are according to nature. And the nature of each race makes them a race and makes them a culture. So to a degree, I can understand, yes, we're a little predictable, but The very fact that we also have free will and free minds should tell us that no, we shouldn't just live by this idea that we're robots that could be programmed so easily. And if you accept that a black person must think this way, then you are by definition a slave. A robot is a slave. That's what these computers are. They're slaves to human beings. And yeah, if you think you are nothing but what people say you are, just this set kind of way of thinking, then yeah, you're a robot, you're a computer, you're a slave.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how this person, War Angel, said, if Biden goes down, the whole matrix goes down or collapse. So yeah, if this establishment loses real bad, like in court, then everybody's sense of reality is just going to start breaking up. They start glitching, like the matrix just start, fracturing and everything.
It's like pouring a bucket of water on a robot.
Yeah, they're going, what's going on? I didn't compute, or I didn't consider this factor. It's going to be like a virus. Like Trump is the virus. They didn't see this coming. So it's going to cause them to malfunction because all their trust in the media and who they thought were the good people and the bad people, it's going to be flipped up. It's just going to cause them to be confused. So that's what's causing this. That's what's the issue right now, is them dealing with cognitive dissonance. That's why they've been violent all this time.
Well, speaking of violence, one thing I want to point out is you have 71 million angry Trump supporters, and you have no rioting, no looting, no burning buildings. So even with this, I mean, regardless of outcome, if there was any debate on where the violence was coming from, because I've heard a lot of people on the left say that, no, it's right-wing provocateurs when they're talking about the violence that has happened since May up until now. It is right-wing provocateurs that are burning down the buildings, that are hurling the bricks, that are looting and stealing and doing all these other things. So that argument has just died. That was absolute nonsense, because if that even had the smallest amount of truth, then I don't know, maybe a small portion of the 71 million angry people that voted for Trump, most of which have guns, would probably be acting violent right now. But they can't find it. It's nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine. We were considering, why did they hold off the counting until Friday to then announce that Biden was a projected winner. And, he was like, yeah, they did that because they were hoping for people to be off from work so that they can riot. I mean, pretty much. Like, if you wait till the weekend, because, I mean, the election should have been Tuesday, but they're like, no. Let's take our time till Friday, just so that people will be off from work. Then people will be out protesting. Then the likelihood of, let's say, Antifa saying, F you right-wing racists, get out of our face, get out of our streets. And then, I don't know, they may throw a cocktail of, whatever. They throw some fire at some car and boom, there could be some kind of riot from that. They were hoping for that. And then, I guess Trump would have to make a statement, and then people are going to start talking about, we're going to have to kick you out. And, there would be civil unrest. But, I mean, it's kind of complicated, I guess, because it's so, I hate it. How many of my left-wing leaning Christian friends, or just people in general, are saying, well, now we could can we go back to civility now? Can we be kind to each other? Let us put our differences aside, and now let's be happy. I'm like, if I could just say the N-word right now, just put my Christianity aside and say, dude, N-word, come on. You guys could have been nice the whole time. Why all of a sudden that Biden gets in power, you want to stop the rioting? Oh, why didn't you just said that when the guy was about to throw a cocktail at the police, throwing fire in this dude's face, shooting him? why didn't you say let's be kind now? Oh, you were scared of your own. You're scared of your own people. But now that they got their way, you want to say, oh, let's be kind. That's like saying to the bully, okay, now that you beat up, you know, you bully the people in your class, and you now have authority in the class. Let's be kind, guys. Yeah, let's just don't make him mad. That's just.
Yeah, I mean, now they're calling for unity, and everyone can hold hands saying, because if Biden is announced president-elect, well, there's no more reason to riot and loot or do any of these other things, which I'm really curious to see what's going to happen, because you know how this was. Trump was blamed for almost every negative thing that could possibly happen during his presidency. COVID was his fault. The BLM riots were also his fault. So what's going to happen during a potential Biden presidency when there is an altercation with police and there's another sensationalized event? Is Biden going to be responsible for, an unarmed black person that is fighting with the police and ends up getting shot? Or are they going to pin all of that on Biden? I wonder how they're going to be able to reframe negative events moving forward if somehow Biden ends up taking office next year.
They're just going to say that it's right-wing violence, and it's Trump's fault. He left this nation this way.
The cop was a Trump supporter, we believe. Alleged he was a Trump supporter. He was a racist guy. They'll probably still, for the next 4 years, they'll probably still blame everything on Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still gonna blame Trump for this. Someone told me to check out this. I guess Ilhan Omar Twitter page.
Project are now attacking each other. Biden's unity. Oh yeah, well I know AOC was she was definitely not calling for unity. She said that we need a list. We need a list of everyone that supported Donald Trump so we can hold them accountable.
Yeah.
A lot of unity, right? So much unity.
Yeah, they're asking for a list of people they want to persecute. So they're coming for you and I. They're definitely
Hitler. I mean, if you want to compare anyone to a Hitler, they're suggesting having a list of people that don't agree with them. So that way we can hold them accountable and we can make sure that bad things happen to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Find us. Look for reasons to say that we need to be banned. And then also, I guess they could just say that we are domestic terrorists. All kinds of excuses they can use to put us away and say that we are our movement is a threat to the democracy. That's what they have to keep on saying, a threat to democracy. And we're taking away their freedom to be living in a civilized nation. But let me look for this.
What are you saying, for Facebook censorship, you're saying? These are the reasons they would use, or?
Oh, no, just for us to be here, just in America. Yeah, they're definitely going to come for us more than just censoring us, because we're going to still meet, and we may actually still, we're still going to vote and try to vote against them. But see, that's the thing, because they own the media, they technically own reality. They actually, it's like they have the reality stone. Thanos, you need to get it back. They control what we believe and know. So let's say a whole county votes Republican or conservative or whatever, votes some non-establishment out. Let's say he votes a non-establishment in. They could just say no. They lost. They lost, even though the count is 100 million. They say no. They lost, and put their person in, and no one would riot because the TV told them that they lost.
Mm-hmm. Well, now they know too. The right is not going to riot. Wow, we have 71 million of the most passionate political party. I mean, when you look at the difference, Trump supporters actually have real passion for their candidate, as opposed to Biden supporters who will definitely not go out of their way to even see or hear the guy speak. And despite all of that, no riots and no violence. So the left probably realizes, okay, well, wow, these people are not even going to try to, burn down buildings. They're not going to be standing outside of City Hall and demanding justice. So they're probably thinking like, okay, well, we could step on their feet and they're not going to do much. But back to what you were saying earlier with them controlling the media, it's like, yeah, if you control what people see, then you can control what they think and you can control how they act. So the right needs to do something in order to grow their influence in terms of having their own media networks. And you see Brandon Tatum, he has TatumReport.com now. He's doing that. And I think Tim Pool as well. I don't know if you watch Tim Pool, but he said he's going to have his own, basically his own network as well. So, I mean, there has to be more countervailing voices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wait. Okay. So I guess this is the feed this is what they're talking about. I don't know who's Rick Wilson. Who's Rick Wilson? You know him?
I'm not familiar with Rick Wilson. So
Okay.
He's a blue check mark though, so it must be important.
Yeah, here's the deal. I don't care what flavor or I think flavor of Islam these blanks, these, phallic symbols are. The flavor that needs to be is bleeding out of a hole in their temple. I'm not understanding that.
I think he's trying to say they need to be shot in the head. They need a hole in their temple. I don't care what flavor of Islam these blanks are. The flavor needs to be. They're trying to say they need to be shot in the head.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. Obviously, this is Islamophobic, right? So this is something that. Okay. This was said in 2014. Okay. So.
Was that his last tweet? Oh, I'm confused here.
Yeah. So she's retweeting or commenting on what Rick Wilson said in 2014 about Islam. So she's like, here's the deal. They might have helped get rid of Trump, but we are going to need more than a prayer to rid this violent mindset from our country. This is just vile. Okay. So
she's trying to say, I'm trying to connect the dots. Maybe it was Rick Wilson. Is he a Republican? And then he was saying, okay, well, if Rick Wilson said this and he was suggesting violence, and then they'll say, well, that means that, every Republican thinks like, oh, this is a Lincoln Project. This is a Lincoln Project guy who is a Republican defector, essentially, a grifter.
Okay. So, okay.
And never Trumper.
Oh, so the Lincoln Project is anti-Trump.
Yeah. No, the Lincoln Project is 100%. It's anti-Trumper Republicans. And they try to frame it as, look, we're Republicans, so gives them credibility, right? They're not just, angry Democrats. We're Republicans and we don't even like Trump. That's what they try to claim. And I mean, there's maybe a small handful of them out there, which are just establishment Republicans that just want someone that is part of the establishment to be in charge. And they don't want someone like Trump who's going to go in there and not going to fall in line with the people of the establishment.
I see. Yeah. So, okay, so this is somewhat, I mean, I guess the person who gave me this comment to go search him out, this is more like a civil war among them, like among anti-Trump supporters. So he's like, okay, we're against Trump. I'm siding with the Democrats. And Ilhan Omar is like, well, we're going to go against you for coming against my Islam. So, yeah. This is, I guess they deserve each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this meme. Got the Godzilla meme. Let them fight.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let them fight. Like, now what? Like, I mean, because this is not something that Trump has ever said. So, yeah. Why act as though you're holier than thou when it comes to Trump's rhetoric? But this is something that you can't really, you cannot in any way justify and say that you're establishment Republican or you represent the Republican Party. So, yeah, this is interesting. Infighting or outdoor fighting or something.
Yeah. I saw that. I mean, the Lincoln Project, they had these big high budget ads. I mean, they were running all over Facebook. I don't know if you used to see them on your feed, but they'd always show up in my feed, and they would just, it was just like anti-Trump ads on looping repeat for the last few months before the election.
Yeah. This is funny.
This from 2014. Many people have learned a lot, especially Rick Wilson.
He was 50 years old. He was a 50-year-old man when he wrote that. You don't just learn something new. So, yeah. Oh, okay. So now they're over here trying to save this guy, saying, no, this was just in the past. That was just 6 years ago. He's changed. He's new.
He was so young. He was only 50. He had no idea what he was saying.
Ilhan, when has the right shown any kind of violence on the left had?
You know what I do? You know what happens when I discuss this with people on the left? And I say that your side is responsible for almost all the violence. And they go, well, you should condemn all the violence. All the violence on the right, on the left, just condemn all the violence, all the violence. And I was like, okay, that's great. I condemn all the violence, but can we have a discussion about where do you think the majority of the violence is coming from? Do you think all those people that are wearing BLM shirts, that are throwing Molotov cocktails through windows, that are lighting cop cars on fire, do you think those are Republicans? No. And going back to even what happened right before the election, it's when you saw all these businesses in D.C., they were boarding up, they were putting plywood over the windows, they were spray painting BLM right over the plywood. Is that because they were afraid that if Trump was declared the victor, that that a bunch of Republicans were going to come in there and break through their windows?
Exactly.
The whole thing is just it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to take down those those boardings. No, they should keep it up. I want them to keep those boardings up. They boarded up L.A. and New York, all over the place, because they expected violence. Now, I wish they just come out and said, yeah, we expect violence from BLM and Antifa and Democrats. But fake people always try to make it sound like it's both sides doing it equally. I swear, it's so fake.
No, it's both sides. It's happening on both sides. I was like, okay, I'm sure if you search hard enough and you dig deep enough, I'm sure you can find an instance of right-wing violence. But I can show you thousands of hours of live stream video from cities all over the country, from Los Angeles to Atlanta, from New York City to Seattle to Portland, where in Portland you had 130 straight days of riots. So when we talk about the magnitude of how much violence, which definitely matters, is it this much violence? Is it this much violence? You have the left causing 99.9% of the violence.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is that when you tell them that they stole the election, all those people who are okay with people stealing things from stores and looting, they're like, what? What do you mean people would steal the election? There's no evidence. Why would we do that? Like, we just had 6 months, 5-6 months of you guys looting and just destroying property. And you think magically those people will not go out and vote. Magically, those people will not jump into the voting booths. They will not be motivated enough to do fraud after you've seen people doing it in the open on camera. It's just
even bigger than that. They cheated against each other. In Paterson, New Jersey, they had to redo the election. Democrats versus Democrats. They cheat to try to beat each other. So to think that they're not going to try to cheat to beat the other party is absolute nonsense. They had to redo that's how bad it was. For anyone that has not seen this, look up Paterson, New Jersey. It was 80,000 ballots that were invalidated. And they had to redo the entire election because of fraud.
Wow.
When they're trying to beat other Democrats. So if they're not going to do this, you have Orange Hitler possibly facing re-election. They're not going to try to pull every single thing that they can? They're not going to pull out every single stop in order to defeat Orange Hitler? Of course. Of course they are.
Yeah. Someone says they did not show that violence on fake news. They called it peaceful. Yeah, that's true.
So it was a peaceful protest with just peaceful fires and peaceful riots and peaceful looting and so much peaceful.
Yeah. And some people would have, they have the nerve to question me when I say, look, these guys are Black Lives Matter and they're Antifa and they're all like Joe Biden supporters. They're not Trump supporters who are doing this. And someone's, show me the evidence that they're not Trump supporters. Show me the evidence. I'm like, what the, like, if you ask them, are you doing this for Trump or are you doing this against, they would say F Donald Trump. They're actually playing music. F Donald Trump. Dun, dun.
Oh, I saw a rally in DC. One of their chants, because they're like on looping repeat. First they have to say, no justice, no peace, blah, blah, blah. They keep looping through their chants. And then they go, not my president, not my president. That was one of their chants, the not my president chant. Like, it was pretty clear what their political affiliation was.
Very, very clear. But
then conspiracy theories come out, right? And the conspiracy theories are, oh, no. Those are just right-wing individuals that are dressing up, that are pretending to be BLM because they want to make them look bad. And then when you get into this crazy conspiracy theory territory, okay, well, I can essentially invalidate any claim you make with the exact same logic. When you ask about right-wing violence, I don't know if you saw this, I guess, a week ago or something. They said there was a big, giant Biden bus on the highway, and it was surrounded by some trucks with Trump flags. And I didn't read the story, but someone told me that one of the trucks, bumped into the car. So they're saying that, okay, well, and then I can use the same logic. I go, okay, well, how do you know those weren't just a bunch of Biden supporters that bought pickup trucks that put Trump flags on their car in an effort to try to make them look bad? That's where it just becomes absolute nonsense. So how about we just believe what we see with our own eyes, and we could at least just move forward from there. And when I see tens of thousands of people rioting and looting with BLM shirts, chanting "Not my president," I'm just going to assume what I see is actually true.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how the kind of mental gymnastics they have to do to just dismiss the fact that one side is doing all the violence. And I know a lot of people don't want to blame like one side, like give a solid I guess condemnation or indictment, because they don't want to criminalize their friends. They don't want to create more, I guess, they don't want to cause more division amongst themselves. And if their friend, let's say their friend is among like with a gang or something like the Bloods or something, and they know that they're committing all kinds of acts of violence, they don't want to come out and say, oh, well, yeah, they're bad people because they're with bad people. No, they don't want to say that. So they just ignore it and say, well, no, everyone's is part of a gang. Everyone's doing bad. Everyone sins. All sin is equal. Get out of here. That all things are equal.
Well, that's what they try to do. They just want to conflate it where, oh, no, there's bad things that are happening on both sides. It's like, yes, we can find some very obscure incidents of people on the right causing violence. And like, for example, when they were talking about, oh, well, there was a truck that bumped into a Biden van. If you want to look at examples of left-wing violence, there's Trump supporters that have been executed, that have been killed, that have lost their life because of their political affiliation. So when you look at the magnitude of difference, it's not even close.
Not even.
Yeah.
I look for Google Trends. Someone suggested I should go to check out Google Trends.
Yeah. Pennsylvania, I'm going to look this up. They said that PA and Georgia voter fraud punishment. Let me see. Anything pops up.
That was a good suggestion.
Georgia. I don't know how to do the do you know how to do this Google Trends?
I'm trying to figure it out myself. Let me see. I never looked up the Google Trends.
Here, 1 second. I am dying here. I just got to take a quick bathroom break.
Okay, so I found it. All right, so we look up voter fraud punishment. All right. Oh, okay. So, all right. So let's look this up. Nice. Let me share my screen. Oh. That was a good suggestion. All right, boom. All right, let me take this off. All right, so.
All right.
So, it's,
So let's see. So then I guess you have to go, because they were saying, I don't know how you filter it. I'm not sure where you can filter it for just showing Georgia and Pennsylvania. I guess they said that there were spikes in Georgia and Pennsylvania. Then I guess you'd have to compare that to, because this just shows time. It just shows when. So like, I guess as of late, wow, you do have a huge spike right now, November 1st to November 7th. A lot of people are worried about the voter fraud punishment, which is
yeah, obviously, because there are a lot of people doing it. What's this?
Click on the bottom. Can you click on the right on the bottom when that spike started over where it shows like October 11th? So that's why October 4th, and then look, see when it goes up. I just want to see like how close before the election.
So October 5th, October 25th, and it's like all-time high.
Yeah, right there. Huh? Look at that.
Wow. Thank you for that suggestion.
Interesting. Okay, now we go down. We can see interest by, okay, so yeah, you have, that's Pennsylvania, and then you have Florida. I guess Florida's in the mix too. Ohio is the number one.
Interesting. So yeah, I guess people in Georgia don't care.
Yeah.
So Pennsylvania, yeah, because they're probably doing a lot.
Yeah.
Florida, probably doing a lot. California, people doing it a lot.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting that it spikes and right around that time frame from October 10th, and then the top of the peak is really that week of the election, November 1st to November 7th.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So that sounds like evidence to me. Sounds like evidence to me.
I wish they could trace it back to the IP addresses, see which IP addresses were the ones that were Googling the search phrase.
I think that would be too much power. That would be too scary.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out within the next few weeks here. I mean, I saw earlier today there was an attorney for Donald Trump. Her name is, I'm trying to remember her name, Sydney. Sydney, I can't remember her last name, but she was on Fox News, and she was talking about the different cases that they're bringing before the Supreme Court. So we'll see what happens, because, I mean, this election is essentially going to come down to about probably less than about 100,000 votes or so in 3 to 4 different states.
Wow. Yeah. I think this is going to really, this is definitely going to be a game changer once they look at this stuff. So they started looking more into it, these were
that's by right. So yeah, that's just right after November 6th. That's when they really started.
So they didn't care. They didn't care to look at. Okay, some people did look into it.
You would think they'd research. They'd like research the punishment before they commit the crime, but maybe not. They want to find afterward.
If I was doing a crime, I would try to not know the punishment because that might discourage me from doing the crime. Mm-hmm. I just try to figure out ways to not get caught. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. But yeah, like this comment, they pulled a Russiagate with little resistance and no accountability. What would stop them from other things? Exactly. How do you have an investigation for like 3-4 years off of what, some dossier? They went through all the legal loopholes just to get their subpoena and everything, and have this like $40 million court case, knowing it was fake. So imagine how much fraud they'd be doing from the top down.
No, I mean, there is just too many instances to count of Democrats acting unethically in an effort to try to seize political power. So, I mean, any idea that somehow they are considering morals and ethics before trying to do things to push themselves into more powerful positions, I mean, is crazy. They'll do anything. These people do absolutely anything to try to seize power.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I guess we can close it off here. There's just, to me, this is just a lot of evidence that something fishy was going on. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think we need to like fight for this. A lot of people are saying, oh, you guys are crying and you just give up. And it's like, no, if someone cheated you out of your money, you don't just say, okay, well, yeah, I guess I lost the money. No, you're not going to give up and like allow yourself to be cheated. You're going to fight it because.
Well, it's crazy. We're calling for an investigation. If this was the other way around, there would be the biggest riots that we've ever seen in this country. And they're upset that we are just using our communication, just verbally communicating that we would like to see an investigation into the many instances of fraud. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, and the problem is that conservatives have been pushovers for too long. We have been pushovers. We've been like, okay, well, let's do the Christ-like thing. Let's just, stick with the system and trust the system. But we're trusting the system, but we're still not using the system for our advantage. And it's like, yo, what's the deal? Like, we made those guys confess that they did this and that. They proved we have evidence that they cheated with they lied with the whole Russian investigation. The whole thing was based on a lie. And we have all those affidavits. We have all that stuff. But we're not doing, it's like, why people aren't in jail? Why? It just makes no sense. And it just kind of discourages me. I'm like, what is AG Barr there for? I haven't seen any arrests. I haven't seen any of these guys arrested for the things they've done. But I don't know. Which causes me to doubt, like, is Trump going to make it through this one? Because if people are not going to be arrested, I don't see how he's going to have any victory in anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's ultimately, the good news is there's a lot of decisions that are made by the Supreme Court, which is why it's so awesome that right before all this happened, he was able to confirm Amy Coney Barrett, so they have a strong 5-4 advantage in the Supreme Court. So that could be pivotal in this election. That could essentially decide this election.
Yep.
Amy Coney could cast the deciding vote in order to that would end up giving Donald Trump the election, or at least granting him investigations, because they're just asking for investigations, like in Pennsylvania, where they said, okay, well, we just want to have we want to be able to observe the counting of the ballots. They take that to the Supreme Court. So, I mean, a lot of these are Supreme Court rulings. So I think that her nomination is going to play a pivotal role over what happens over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are like
Sounds not good. Well,
watching the MAGA meltdown videos.
uh,
So some of these guys, they're like, yeah, look at them. They're complaining. Look at the meltdown. I'm like, dude, it's nowhere near leftists who are screaming, "Ah!"
like show me the equivalent of what was that viral one? There's like some woman with like some like it's like a gray and green kind of skull cap, and she has like this big giant open mouth, just yelling at the top of her lungs, this audible screech for like a straight minute. I go, find me the equivalent of that. Like, if the meltdown is me and you in good spirits on camera having a conversation about how voter fraud should be investigated, that is meltdown.
Yeah. I mean, they try to compare like the small things that we do with their great things and say that they're equivalent. But man, dude, we just went through a whole year of these guys burning things down, breaking car windows, taking people out their cars, beating them up, taking kids from their parents just so that they can beat up the people inside the car. I mean, it's just tons of the videos, and they want to say that we're meltdowning.
If you want to see a real meltdown, watch what happens when and if the election is overturned. Then you will see a meltdown. You've seen a MAGA meltdown. You want to see a meltdown, watch what happens if this election is overturned. And believe me, it's not going to be a bunch of people from the left sitting on StreamYard having a conversation about the election being overturned. It's going to be an entire dealership of cars on fire as buildings are being burned and stores are being looted. That's what you're going to see. That is a meltdown.
Exactly.
Average guy, if you want to see a meltdown, just to type in, just type in Atlanta riots, type in Minnesota riots. That's what a meltdown looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's close up here. I think we said enough. There's more to say, but I appreciate you guys for staying tuned and giving your input. Even if if you don't agree with us and you're here to mock, that's fine too. We mock you, you mock us.
You know what? Because a lot of people on the left are so allergic to any sort of viewpoints that are not exactly in line with their own. So I at least want to thank Average Guy, even with his mockery. I want to thank him for tuning in and watching the MAGA meltdown. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something.
Yeah. Actually, that should be the name of my next video or something.
You should just have it. We do a discussion. It was called make it the MAGA meltdown.
Yeah, we would just be so composed.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of this?
Yeah. Like, show me the video of me like crying in tears and yelling at the top of my lungs, like as I'm pumping my fist to the sky. Like, I would like to see that one because I haven't seen the footage of that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you. If you'd like to support my channel, my PayPal link is down below. Also go to is it Policy Police?
Policy Police. You can visit my page. I've been uploading videos. I'll have plenty of videos coming out, post-election thoughts. I'll be covering any of the potential fraud cases that are coming out and all of Trump's legal battles. I'll be covering all of that. So I appreciate it. I hope you guys check out my channel.
Awesome. Yeah, I should have had this the whole time, but I sometimes I forget. But anyway.
It's okay. If you can't, put it in your description if you can.
That's right. So, yeah, check out Policy Police and help his channel to grow. And also, help my channel grow. I'm at 87,000 now. I lost some subscribers. Every time I do lives, I lose subscribers for some reason. I don't know why. But
I hope I don't lose any this time. I hope I'm trying to help. Hope we gain.
No. I just think that what it is that it may be because Biden won. They're like, there's some people saying, well, I don't need to subscribe to this anymore, so they leave. Or for a couple of weeks, I haven't been doing consistent videos. So YouTube, they constantly delete channels that they claim are robots.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would be leaking subscribers anyway. So anyway,
Very
anyway,
well.
thank you guys. God bless you guys. And remember the good news. Jesus is coming. God is in control. God bless and have a good day.
Thank you.